Okay guys, so I've got my setup here. Here's my one piece of cardstock. Out of the three that are the same size, I've got my apple here. I've set it on something light so I can see this cool shadow. Do you see there? So you want to have a distinct light source. It's going to make it so much easier for you to make it look three-dimensional if you have a light source. Since we're doing warm colors, I do have the red and yellow. Those are the warm tones. I'm also going to post some pictures of other artwork that of fruit that have warm color schemes, cool color schemes, and complementary. And we're just focusing on warm today. And you might ask, what the heck does she have the blue doing over here? We're going to use that to mix in to make some of the shadows, some of the darker tones, okay? But it's mostly going to be made up of these colors here, right? Red and yellow. We can make some orange and different things like that, right? And the white is to make it lighter. The blue is to make it darker to make our shadows, okay? I've got paper towel. I've got my jar. I've got my brushes. And then I've got the one that I did last block as an example for the painting students. So here's this one. I'll also post a picture of this one. I also had brown at the time that I worked with in class, so it may not look just like this, but this is kind of what we're going for, right? We want to have really high contrast, meaning lights where the lights are hitting it, and darks, right? You can put a horizon line in if you want, or you cannot. I'll show you other examples where they don't have the horizon line. And what we want to do is make it lighter behind the darker areas, make the table a slightly different value, and we want to have a very distinct light source, like I said, with a shadow underneath our fruit, just like that. So it looks 3D and it pops off the page, okay? So I'm going to show you where to start. So first thing we want to do is basically get your apple or whatever fruit at a nice angle that's pleasing to the eye. And I'm going to draw, and I'm going to push down a little bit harder than I want you to push down with your pencil because I want you to be able to see it. I don't even know if you guys can see that, but see how that's in a regular shape? We want it to be nice and organic. And then I'm going to make another little shape here so I can put where the stem is coming there. We're going to have a place for the stem to grow out of, and then I'm going to basically just draw right where that shadow is. We see how simple that drawing is? That's easy peasy, right? There we go. Like I said, you can put a horizon line in like that. This one's got kind of a cool one because I have it sitting on a plate, so I'm going to do kind of a curved kind of little thing like that. Right? We see that? There you go. That's all you need to start, okay? And I'm going to start on my background because I don't want to get into all these details until I learn how the paint works, okay? So I'm going to be nice and loose in the background, okay? Here we go. I'm going to wet my brush a little bit first. I'm going to use my bigger brush. Everybody got a bigger brush. And I'm going to make a nice orange tone. Mix those two together. You don't need very much paint for this, right? And you don't have to fill your entire page because we're trying to conserve paint. So you don't have to use any more than like a little dime-sized dollop of paint. And like I said, you don't have to fill. I probably put too much on my plate. So we want to really conserve the paint. You can always take more out, but you don't want to put too much on there, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is just go in, outline here, go around my table, and just get real loose. I just want to not get too tight with my brush strokes. I want to make it nice and expressive. I might speed up the video through some of these parts for you so you don't have to sit through all this, okay? But what I want to see is that you're doing different values and different warm tones. Okay. Here we go. And you can go all the way to the edge if you want, but again, we're trying to conserve paint. I use too much, like I already said, on my plate. You're going to put less than that on your plates. Okay. And I'm just going to come in. I'm going to start to outline everything. See? Got my background kind of loose. I'll touch that up later. Okay? Then what I'm gonna do is take my darkest shade, which is gonna be red, right, for now. And I'm gonna look at my apple and I'm gonna see where the darkest areas are, right? And that's what I'm gonna start with. I'm gonna fill in, and I'm gonna paint much quicker than you are. You're gonna take your time. I'm just gonna look at where the light is being blocked. And I'm gonna use curved brush strokes so I can apply three-dimensionality just like that. Then what I'm gonna do is start to make my mid-tone. So that's where the light is still blocked, but not quite as much, right? So I'm gonna go through here. And then I'm gonna lighten from there, even lighter, right? So it gets light along the rim here. I'm still using my big brush. I'm gonna switch to my smaller one in just a minute. I just wanna get it all blocked in. See how it's already starting to take form? Form meaning three-dimensionality. You see that? Right? So already it looks a little bit 3D. Do we see that? That's just our very first step, okay? Then I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna make it even lighter. It's gonna be a good time to maybe just do my table. Let's get that dark on it. This is one of my first little bits of blue I'm gonna put in. I'm gonna make my red darker. Do we see that? Ooh yeah, darker. Okay, so we're gonna go in, make the table darker, just to give it some gravity on the page. Again, you do not need to fill in the entire sheet. We're gonna go around the shadow because I'm gonna make that even darker. And again, you wanna vary it, so don't be afraid to let some of the paint that was on your brush just kind of mix in with it. All right, so we got our little table. I'm gonna take even more blue mixed in with the red and get an even darker shade, and that's gonna be my shadow. I'm gonna come around the apple on the bottom just to give it a little bit of darkness there. So do we see how it's starting to take shape? Oh my goodness, look at that. We love it. Okay, so I'm gonna take a smaller brush and I'm going to now really start to get in there and create some form. So I'm gonna get in here. Look at where the light's being blocked by the stem and on the inside there. I'm barely having any paint on my brush, right? So you can kind of dry brush it in there. It's kind of like shading with a pencil. Barely any paint on the brush. Then I'm gonna go in and really look at the areas on my apple that are the darkest, right? So I'm gonna take a lot of the paint off my brush. I'm just gonna kind of shade my apple here and look at where the light's being blocked and make it darker in those areas. We're just kind of shading it now. Just like that. Make it even darker right where it touches the table. Just like that. Then I'm gonna get my even smaller brush and I'm gonna go in and put some of the highlights right along here. Whoops, let me pull this over. Right along here, do we see? Got some bright highlights along the top. So I'm using more yellow to do that. Sometimes I finger paint too. We can go over some of the darker areas and it'll still become a mid-tone. See how that's working? Get more 3D, look at that. Okay. Take some of this over some of the dark areas just to get it in more mid-tone so it's not so harsh. We just really want to study the fruit. And let those brush strokes, I mean, this is a painting. We want to see the brush strokes, right? We want to take a detail brush. I'll give you guys each a little detail brush. We're going to go in. I want to make this stem really dark, so I'm going to mix a lot of the blue in with the red. I want to go in and make that stem dark. It's a little bigger at the top. Just like that. Right? Make it a little bit, it's still dark inside this little part. Not as dark as the stem though. Again, just keep those brush strokes following the curve of your fruit. That's going to make it more 3D. Okay? And then we want to make sure to always keep in mind, and again, I am painting super fast. You're not going to paint. You're not going to do a 10-minute painting like me. Okay? So I'm going to take some of the bright white, and that's when I'm going to go in and look at right where the light is directly hitting that fruit. And that's where I'm going to use my white. Really study it. Right along here. The brightest, brightest white. I'm going to give my stem a little highlight too. Right? Maybe give our table. Ooh, that's dramatic. Maybe blend that in a little bit. Here we go. Right? Maybe get some white in the background just to kind of unify it. Okay, so this is pretty good. I could work on it a lot more, but I don't want to bore you guys. So, here's a little apple painting, right? Can we see? Ooh. See how much brighter the background is, how much darker the table is, and then the apple is mostly mid-tone, so it stands out. Do we like it? Yay! Okay, now you're gonna try it, okay?